Yo, what is up guys? In today's video, I'm going to talk you through why you may be feeling as though you aren't improving at Fortnite anymore and are potentially facing a plateau in your skill. I'm going to talk you through some of the tips I've learned which helped me and many other players push through and see great improvement in their gameplay. If you do enjoy today's video, please do drop a like and subscribe for much more content just like this. The first thing I want to talk about is understanding that you are not a pro. A crucial part of actually improving at Fortnite is understanding your mistakes and what you did wrong in the build up to your death. I see so many players these days blaming any excuse they can, whether it be lag or bad FPS or even your shitty PC, instead of actually looking instead at themselves and realizing they died as a result of bad decision making they made in the build up to their death. If you actually want to start seeing improvement, you need to stop thinking you're the best player in the world and drop your ego, as no player is perfect and everyone actually makes mistakes. When you die, you should go back and watch that death back and understand what you yourself did wrong in the build up to your death instead of blaming it on teammates or any other factor you can find except yourself. My second tip is all about managing your time correctly every time you come online. Now, for many of us, it's unrealistic that we can play 10 hours a day, so one of the most crucial factors when actually trying to see improvement is correctly managing the time you're online, whether it just be a single hour or up to 10 hours. Let's say if you're only able to get online for 3 hours a day, this whole time that you're online should be spent grinding practice maps or playing scrims instead of becoming complacent and just messing around or slacking. I know it sounds harsh and boring, but if you are strict with yourself and genuinely want to improve, you have to follow a set schedule whenever you get online, which incorporates all the factors of your gameplay you are wishing to improve, whether this be aim, mechanics, edits, practicing endgames through scrims, early game, anything like that. You need to have a schedule which incorporates all of it. I'd recommend setting a certain amount of time each day to warm up, practice your fighting as well in modes such as ranked, practice scrims, and all these three areas can come together into one and help contribute to making your overall game better, ready for when tournaments do come around and you can start placing higher. My third point to talk about is about stop worrying about your placements. Now, before you completely disregard everything I say and click off the video, please listen, as what I'm about to say is actually really important. Just because you have a bad placement in a cash cup doesn't mean that you're washed or that you're not improving. For example, you could be practicing correctly for a few weeks or even a month, but when a duo cash cup finally comes round that you and your duo can play, or even a solo victory cup for example, you tank and only end up barely scraping a top 10k placement, and you're not happy with this. I get it, you're going to feel frustrated because you're putting in such a grind and it's not showing in competitive tournaments yet. But what you have to understand is that just because your improvement isn't being reflected in your tournament placements, this doesn't mean that you're not improving in general. Placements are an indication of how good a player is, but just because you have one bad cash cup doesn't mean that you're now washed. Even pros have bad tournaments. You have to understand this. There's tournaments where Peterbot comes top 3,000 and everyone thinks he's washed, and then he goes next week and wins. It's important to remember that improvement takes time and that the placement will come in the future if you continue with the grind. If you stay dedicated, the placements will be reflected in the tournaments in the future. Now, my fourth point that I want to talk about is one that you simply have to get your head around, and that's that one season isn't enough time. I want you guys to understand that you can't turn from a 0 to 20 PL player, for example, to all of a sudden having earnings and 1000 PR within a single season. It just simply doesn't work that way for 99.9% of people. Sure, there might be one or two exceptions, but for the most of us, it doesn't work that way. It's the same as trying to improve at anything in life. The grind takes time, it takes dedication to truly see improvement. Now, by watching until this point in the video, it's clear to me that you want to take your game to the next level, but you have to understand that even if you start grinding every day, let's even say 5 hours a day, improvement will still take time. You can't speed it up. Now, I want to talk about something which I once saw. I once saw an image about improving, and it said that let's say at first 100 people start on day one with the goal of trying to improve and go pro. After a week, 50 may have quit already because they haven't seen any results and they struggle with the grind. After a month, maybe only 10 are left, still grinding, and they're still seeing very little results. It's not being even reflected in their placements just yet. And now we forward to just 6 months time from when the 100 players started grinding and only 2 players remain. But those 2 players that remain stuck through all the hardships of it not being reflected in their placements and them feeling like they weren't improving. And they are the people that go on to be the most successful. They're the ones that go on to make their first earnings, take it further, potentially start qualifying Duo Cash Cup finals, FNCS, and even go pro. pro. I guarantee you for those players that are pros now that look back in 2021, 2022 and were finding it really hard, feeling like they can't improve, they're so happy that they pushed through that hard stage because now they're a pro Fortnite player and they're making thousands of dollars off of the game. Now, point number 5 is all going to be something that's really important, and that's becoming complacent with your practice. You cannot let this happen. Arguably, the most important factor when trying to see improvement is staying consistent, and this is continuing to practice day in, day out, no matter what occurs. I see so many potentially talented players that could go pro quit and give up on the grind just because they become complacent, they get bored, they're not enjoying the grind anymore, and they stop practicing. But what you have to understand, for example, is the importance of scrims. Let's just talk about scrims. Every time you play a scrim game, that's simulating a real game scenario from a tournament where the win could potentially make you that $100 in earnings that you guys want so much. However, let's say tomorrow you stop practicing these scrims as much and become complacent. You simply won't see the results. That's just the way it works. And the reason for this is because if you play 50 scrim games within a month, that's 50 times that you die. You're able to identify why you died, the mistakes why, and learn from it. Whereas if you only play 5, you're only going to identify 5 mistakes and learn from that. So the more you do it, the more practice you guys will get and the better you will become. You cannot slack off with any sort of practice. You won't improve. That's just the way it works. I'd recommend setting aims which you can comfortably follow for a long period of time, but what I want you guys to understand is that you're better off practicing just 2 hours a day for 6 months than 7 hours a day for 2 weeks. Quality over quantity is what's so important. Practice consistently over a long period of time and you will see the results. It simply will happen. For my 6th point, I lastly want to talk about a technique which you guys can use, which helps me actually learn, identify, and understand my mistakes. Now, you can use this strategy of identifying your mistakes and actually start improving if you really feel like you're stuck in competitive and you're just struggling in general. What I would recommend is that you take a batch of your gameplay, possibly around, let's say, 10 solo victory cup games if you feel like you're struggling in solos, for example, where you died in mid to end game, as realistically, if you died early game, this is a whole different topic. You can sort that by watching my early game video on my channel. Now, from the middle game to end game, I want to analyze and note down where you went wrong in every single game. So watch back the replays and identify, or try and identify, where you went wrong in every game. Was it poor positioning? Was it a bad rotation? Was it that you didn't go early enough on the rotate or something like that? But what is important to note is that you understand the true reason behind why you went down. Instead of just writing a really broad term, for example, like I got focused or I got lobbied, identify that maybe it was your bad positioning on a low or poor layer which led to you having a lot of opponents looking at you, and that's why you got low lobby focus. This deeper level of analysis is what is crucial if you really want to improve. Now, once you've got a list of every reason that you went down in 10 to 15 games, for example, from here you can identify common mistakes you make which cause you to die on a regular basis, and then try and eradicate them out of your gameplay in the future over time just through practice in games such as scrims. I really hope you have enjoyed, and thank you very much for watching until the end of today's video. With OG season just around the corner, I really do recommend you smash that subscribe button for much more content coming out just like this. Peace out from me.